Let's go over how you can start to fix early extension. By far, the most common thing I am asked is how can I stay my posture better? How can I stop driving my hips underneath of me, popping up and out of it with the head? There are a lot of different ways that this can sort of manifest to players. But we have to understand why this is happening. We're at the end of the day where early extension usually occurs for a reason. So you can spend all the time in the world doing drills to make sure that you feel like the butt is sitting back as you turn, you feel like your chest is going down or your head is staying down through impact and you're staying in your posture. But if you don't fix the root cause, those issues are always going to manifest regardless of how hard you practice those, because your ultimate goal at the end of the day is to hit the golf ball properly. So if you have certain issues in the swing, the early extension is a compensation to allow you to try to make decent contact, where if you would actually maintain your posture, it would be pretty devastating for the shot result, which I will elaborate on and kind of talk through. So there are two really big reasons for early extension that I'm going to go over. Sort of a third bonus one, that's what we're going to start with. This is usually the easiest to fix, and this is going to be the posture. So if you get set in a position where if you are standing up and you really get your weight back in your heels, you get the glutes pushed way back behind the ankle joints here, where ideally you don't want to see the glute line here way back behind the ankles. You want the pelvis to be tucked up underneath of you a little bit more. If you get set way more in this position, where you are very back on the golf ball, glutes are pressed back, your glutes can't go any further back. The only place that they can go is forward to kind of get the body to recenter itself. So that is going to be the first sort of fix here, where if you stand straight up, I want you to feel like you barely bend the knees, you push the glutes back 1 to 2 inches, you feel like you sort of hinge over at the waist down towards the golf ball, let those shoulder blades start to relax. Now you can see that glute line isn't nearly as far back behind the ankles or the heels here. From this position, I have the room to start sitting back. So assuming that the rest of the swing is in a good position, posture is something that can throw you off a little bit. But the two most common I see are going to be an open club face and coming over the top or being steep in the golf swing. So let's start with the open club face. And this is where, when it comes to the specific fixes for all of these, it gets a little bit more individualized player to player, and that is where I do recommend working with a coach or someone to take a look at the swing, because there can be many different causes for these. But if we're going over kind of the why the early extension happens, that's what I'm going to cover. So if we are looking at an open club face, say it is your grip is a little bit too weak, say you really cup this wrist and that gets the club very open on the way down, say you have a lot of forearm rotation off the start of the swing which opens this club face, and then you maintain that position. If you truly maintained your angles, you would hit the ball dead right. So if you got in here and say you have a weaker grip and you roll the club face open off the start, and now you maintain this position and you try not to pop yourself up and out of the shot, and you just really get the butt pushing back, try to maintain those hands in front of the club head to get some nice shaft lean, keep your head down and turn, that face will be wide open. So that is, of course, not a great way to hit the golf ball. If you came into the golf ball like this, even though the body positions look good, that club face is nowhere near where it needs to be. So typically what the body does to try to get the club face to close itself up is you start to cast, or you start to lose the wrist angles a little bit, where you can see if I start to move my hands back, what happens to that club face? It starts to close itself. So usually that is going to manifest in some sort of casting motion where these angles are released. So if you release these angles, that club head is going to be getting closer to the ground. So if you kept your body posture where it was supposed to be and you release these angles and you turn, you would throw the club a foot behind the golf ball. So how do you get yourself out of the way? That is where you start to stand up so this club has room to get through. So again, the cause of the open club face varies from player to player, but until you fix that, you can do all the drills in the world to really make sure that you kind of get the butt sitting back and you can stay in your posture, keep the chest down, get the body to open, stay in some nice right side bend for a right-handed player. But if you do that and that face is open, you're going to hit every ball dead to the right. The early extension and flipping is your compensation to try to square the face up. So now let's look at coming over the top or getting a little bit steep. This is where, again, the specific cause varies from player to player. Having someone with a more trained eye to take a look at the swing is the best way to sort of address this. But say I get to a position where my club face is square, but my first move on the way down is my hands work way out in front of me. This club shaft is very steep on the way down. If I maintain my positions and I push my front glute back, kept my head down, stayed in my posture with my upper body, and just focus on turning, I would basically miss the golf ball. I would have no chance of getting to this. So another way that early extension is trying to help you is if I drive the hips up underneath of me and I pull my head back, what that's going to do to this golf club is get it to flatten and lower. So this is where early extension is going to act as a club shallower. So again, if you get in this position, focus on turning, you're basically going to miss it, or your over the top move is going to get even worse. So your way of getting underneath of this is you drive the hips forward, pull the head back, this gets the club to lower. Now you actually have a chance to make decent contact with it. So while you may not like the early extension, you may not like popping up and out of the shot, it's a necessary matchup for something that is going on earlier in the swing. So before you start stressing the body, really pushing the glutes back, forcing yourself to stay in position, you got to make sure that club face is square and that club is coming in from a little bit more of a shallow position. Now I can maintain these angles and turn as hard as I want, maintain my posture just fine. That club is going to get down to the golf ball and that face is going to be nice and square, where I can actually get into this position with a square face, open the body up, stay in posture, have some forward shaft lean, rather than scooping and kind of popping up and out of it, or coming over the top and then popping up and out of it to get that club to lower. So if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them in the comments. But if you are early extending, don't stress the body trying to get yourselves in positions to really kind of maintain the body structure. You got to fix that root cause first.